On today's video, I will answer a question that you guys have been asking me since forever. Something so important that needs to be addressed. Should you use tier 4 units or tier 5 units to battle in open field during KVK? Which is the cost to benefit ratio? Do you get more kills in proportion? When it's better to use tier 4 and when it's better to use tier 5? I will present all the data that I have collected on the topic, and I will give you my detailed opinion on this really difficult topic. You want to watch this video until the end because every step of the way is important and there will be many surprises. Let's go! Hello gamers and welcome back to Wick Gaming. Tier 4 or tier 5 units in open field? That's the question. And there is no short answer to this, but I will try to make it as simple as possible. Before we get into it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. This video took me a long time to make and any support would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. We need first to establish some parameters, like usual. The target of this video are free-to-play, low spenders and low to mid-spender players that on average have the same fighting capabilities. Active players who are in the first 3 KVKs or in the Season of Conquest but without full technology, players who have an average equipment, do not spend too much or do not spend at all in the game, but those players at the same time have a full academy technology. It's important we say this because even if you are in the Season of Conquest, and to enter there you need the City Hall to be level 25, you may not have a fully researched technology in the academy. So this video is for players who have a full base technology. In this way, the difference between tier 4 and tier 5 units is just in the base statistics of the unit themselves. And of course, all the equipment that is going to be applied on them, even if it's the same, is going to have a different benefit. And why is that? Because any percentage increase on a higher base statistic is going to have a better return. For example, if you increase 10% attack on 200 base attack, you are going to get a total of 220. If you increase the same 10% but on 100 base attack, you are going to get 110. The same 10% attack bonus is increasing 20 points with 200 base attack and 10 points with 100 base attack. I hope the example is clear. So we need to take this in consideration. Where was the starting point of my testing? I went in the Ark of Osiris map, which has increased damage. Very similar situation of what you find in KVK, so the results are comparable. And I started battling in the usual neutral conditions that you, viewer of this channel, already know very well by now. Essentially everything is the same. VIP level, civilization, units, commanders, talents, buff, city skin, etc. This translates in us dealing exactly the same damage to each other, as you can see from this markswoman battle with 200,000 tier 5 troops per side battling each other. Now, my friend Flader, who I really thank for the help and the patience, keeps using 200,000 tier 5 cavalry, while I personally use 200,000 tier 4 cavalry. I remember, everything is equal now, except of course the unit tier. We will retreat at the same time every time my health bar drops 5%, so every 10,000 troops. I retreated at 190,000 troops remaining, 180,000, 170,000, 160,000 and so on, down to 0. Then I wrote down on a spreadsheet my wounded units and his wounded units. My wounded units are of course tier 4, his are tier 5. After reporting all the data on the table, I calculated the wounded ratio of tier 5 to tier 4. For example, the first number 0.68 essentially means that every single unit I get to the hospital, he gets 0.68 units. Or, if you prefer, every 100 tier 4 I get in my hospital, he gets 68 tier 5 in his hospital. That's what this ratio is representing. Afterwards, I created a simple graphic to visualize the columns C and F. I called it percentage to wounded ratio, where on the y-axis, the vertical one, we have the ratio, and on the x-axis, the horizontal one, we have the percentage of troops remaining, basically when we retreated from the battle. This curve tells us something extremely important. What's the best moment to retreat your tier 4 troops? what's a not so good range where to retreat your troops, and what's the worst moment to retreat your troops. You can see that up to 50% troops remaining, so exactly half of your march, the curve is pretty stable, the wounded ratio is very good, and you can keep fighting without worrying too much. Between 50% and 20%, the curve starts to sink. That's a moment where you really need to think to retreat and put a fresh march on the battlefield. While below 20%, you just get destroyed, essentially. I do not advise to let your march go so low in health remaining. That's independently if you are using tier 4 or tier 5, actually. The best spot to retreat your tier 4 march would be at 70% health remaining. But I mean, doing that would be stupid because you will just lose time by going back and forth to your city. Not always your city is close, you will have zero fun and will make very few kills. So my advice is not to go any lower than 50 or 40%. When you get there, go back to your city and refresh your march. I remember that in this testing we did not use any equipment, but I will talk about equipment and the downsides of using tier 4 units later on this video, so stick around. The second part of my data collection was about the resource cost and the kill points comparison between tier 4 and tier 5 players. Now, assuming that we retreat our march always around the sweet spot of 50% health remaining, we dealt this damage and took this damage, so we can compare the healing costs. I compared 4 types of healing costs. When you are below VIP 16, so you don't have a 10% discount on the hospital bill. When you are VIP 16 or 17 and you have 10% healing cost reduction. When you are VIP 18 and you have 15% healing cost reduction. And when you are an average player in Season of Conquest with VIP 16 and a low KVK tech. If you are not in the Season of Conquest, just ignore the last box. Let me clarify this further. I wrote down VIP 18 just to be complete, but you can scrap that. We know for a fact that VIP 18 players will not use tier 4 units on the field. And this, what do I mean with low KVK tech? According to the player's experience and the data I have collected, the average player that grinds a lot during the Season of Conquest manages to reach Special Medicines 1, but not complete it. I had then considered just an extra 5% healing cost reduction. This means that the average player with VIP 16 and Special Medicines 1 will have a total of 15% healing cost reduction. Of course, it will be less if you are free to play and more if you are a mid-spender or higher. You get the idea. Those players, so players who in general are part of the group of active players who enjoy the game and who play the game every day and try to do the best with what they have, that's what we are talking about. The resource comparison is the following. Tier 4 players who retreat their marches around 50% health remaining and fight against similar players who use T5 instead will spend 42% less food, wood and stone and 92% less gold. If we consider an average equipment on both sides, Tier 5 players are going to gain more advantage compared to Tier 4 players, and this resource advantage will be slightly less. According to my data and estimations, you will spend about 25 to 30% less food, wood and stone, and 85% less gold. Let's compare now the kill points. Tier 5 players will get 23% less kill points with no equipment and around 13 to 15% less kill points with average equipment. Of course, I am speaking about proportions, please keep that in mind. We don't even have to talk about speed-ups. Healing T4 units is much cheaper, especially considering that Lilith restricted us to 1000 helps per day. Thanks, Lilith. But before you think this is too good to be true and that using Tier 4 is always better, we did not consider other factors. Tier 5 players can stay on the field longer and kill faster. Tier 4 units will be weaker, so you will need to retreat more often, and in all the time lost, the Tier 5 players will have made more kills than you. But is this strictly relevant? Yes and no, for several reasons. If you are not in a rush and you want to take your time, for example, to complete your killing mission, I strongly suggest you use Tier 4 units and not Tier 5. If you are in a sensitive situation that requires you to use your maximum strengths in the fastest way possible, Tier 5 is the way. but it will be so much more expensive. Anyhow, there are times in which the sacrifice is worth it and frankly essential. For example, small zones in KVK, which is just one, Kingsland. You need to be quick and deal damage quickly to build your flags, so in that context, tier 5 units are optimal and worth the sacrifice. Ark of Osiris, you don't need to heal there, so tier 5 is absolutely and obviously the way to go. But for the remaining situations, I truly believe that free-to-play, low spenders, low to mid spenders and frankly even mid spenders should use tier 4 for the field fights. Will it take more time to you to complete your missions? Yes. Will you kill less? Yes, but more efficiently. Your trades in proportion will be much better, even if you will have the chance to fight less because getting your kills requires more time. But other than that, you will have a lot of upsides. You can play the game longer, you can use your tier 5 units to reinforce rallies and structures, you will save a lot of resources and smaller players will potentially be able to fight until the end of KVK if they saved a good amount of resources and used farm accounts. And consider this as well, just food for your thought. In a murder ball, a sword march gets approximately the same number of wounded units, regardless if you're using tier 4 or tier 5 units. But with tier 5, it will be much more expensive. Therefore, another upside is the fact that you will be able to avoid or at least mitigate extra risky situations due to lagging or crashing. Another little information, the damage output of tier 4 marches in a murder ball is on average just 12% lower than tier 5 units. Of course, you can ignore everything I said if you are a VIP 18 player with full technology. This video is obviously not for you. I think I gave you enough information to judge by yourself if you are the type of player who should prefer fighting in open field with tier 4 units or tier 5 units. It's all up to you. I am just giving you my data and my perspective on the subject. I want to add that the variables in play can be very different. A group fight is composed by a big variety of players. For example, players who have as goal to snipe and kill weaker players, high spenders, but also casual free-to-play players, and everything we said needs to be considered as an average, a general point of view on the topic. We do not fight in a perfect scenario. The entropy is elevated and sometimes your fights will have a very positive outcome, some other times they won't. I just hope this video was helpful to you. It was a big project to take. If you want to support the channel, just do me a favor, leave a like and subscribe, nothing else. And I will see you on the next one. Ciao!